They thought they could the protagonist introduce the black woman, her background, and her situation. She could be a business owner, a single mother, or a professional just going about her day. 2. The setup. She finds herself in a vulnerable position. Maybe she's being followed, cornered, or scammed. The antagonist believes she's an easy target. 3. The crime begins. The perpetrators attempt to take advantage of her, possibly through robbery, harassment, or an attempted assault. They underestimate her completely. 4. The turning point. Instead of panicking, she remains calm and observant, looking for her moment to act. She warns them, but they don't take her seriously. 5. The gun is drawn. In a dramatic moment, she pulls out her firearm, revealing that she's trained and ready to defend herself. The tables turn instantly. 6. Shock and fear. The perpetrators freeze, realizing their mistake. Maybe one tries to talk his way out of it, while another panics and runs. 7. A show of control. She doesn't fire immediately. Instead, she commands the situation, possibly making them drop their weapons, return stolen property, or get on the ground. 8. The arrival of law enforcement. Whether called by bystanders or herself, the police arrive. There's tension. How will they react to a black woman holding a gun? 9. Resolution. Depending on the tone of the story, she could be recognized as a hero or she might have to defend her actions. The perpetrators face consequences. 10. Final reflection. She walks away changed but unshaken, proving that strength, preparedness, and courage make all the difference. She wasn't the kind of woman people expected to fight back. Danielle Carter, a 38-year-old small business owner, had spent her life minding her own, running a cozy coffee shop on the east side of town. She wasn't flashy, but she was sharp, observant, cautious, and always prepared. Growing up with a father who was a former Marine and a mother who never let anyone take advantage of her, Danielle learned early on that self-reliance was key. She had her concealed carry permit, practiced at the range every month, and made sure no one mistook her kindness for weakness. That evening, she was closing up shop alone, a routine night that was about to turn into a test of everything she stood for. It was late, past 10 p.m., and the streets were quieter than usual. Danielle locked up her coffee shop, the last traces of espresso and warm pastries still lingering in the air. As she walked toward her car in the dimly lit lot, she noticed something. A black sedan idling across the street, its engine humming low. Her instincts kicked in. She wasn't paranoid. She was prepared. Living in the city had taught her that danger didn't always announce itself. Sometimes it lurked in the shadows, waiting for a moment of weakness. She tightened her grip on her purse, where her .380 pistol rested in a concealed holster, just in case. Then, as she reached for her car door, she heard it. The quick shuffle of footsteps behind. Danielle barely had time to turn before she felt it. A sharp tug at her purse. "Don't make this hard," a low voice muttered. Two men stood behind her. One was tall and lanky, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. The other was stockier, his hand stuffed deep into his jacket, probably holding a weapon. Danielle's pulse quickened, but her mind stayed clear. They thought she was just another easy target. A woman alone at night? Too afraid to fight back. They had no idea. She loosened her grip on her purse just enough to make them think she was giving in. Her other hand was already inching toward her holster. The turning point. Danielle knew fear was a weapon, and she refused to give them that advantage. "Take it easy," she said, keeping her voice steady. She let go of her purse slightly, making the taller man think she was surrendering, but her fingers were already brushing against the grip of her pistol. The stocky one smirked. "Smart girl." He shifted, probably to pull a weapon of his own. That was his mistake. With one swift motion, Danielle stepped back, drew her gun, and leveled it at them. "Try me," she said, voice like steel. On. Silence. Thick, heavy, and absolute. The taller man's eyes went wide. His hands, once so eager to snatch her purse, hovered in the air now, uncertain, shaking. The stocky one froze, his hand still inside his jacket. "You," he started, but Danielle cut him off. "Don't," she said, her voice even but firm. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. She kept the gun steady, her stance solid. She had trained for this. Her father's lessons echoed in her mind. Control your breathing. Never pull a gun unless you're ready to use it. Make them believe you will. And looking at her now, they'd fear. The taller man took a shaky step backward, his hand still raised. He hadn't expected this. The stocky one hesitated, his breathing heavy. His hand twitched inside his jacket. Was he still thinking about pulling a weapon? Danielle didn't flinch. Don't be stupid, she warned, her voice even. She wasn't bluffing, and they knew it. For a moment, no one moved. The air crackled with tension. Then, in an instant, the taller man bolted, his sneakers slapping against the pavement as he disappeared into the night. The stocky man didn't run, not yet. A show of control, Danielle held her ground, unwavering. The stocky man's hand twitched inside his jacket, but he hesitated. He was weighing his options and realizing he had none. Take your hand out. Slowly, Danielle ordered, her voice calm but commanding. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, gritting his teeth, he obeyed. Pulling his hand out, empty. Now, drop the knife. His fingers tightened around the small blade, as if debating whether to fight. Danielle didn't flinch. I said drop it, clink. The knife hit the pavement. The arrival of law enforcement. In the distance, the sharp wail of sirens cut through the night. Help was coming. Danielle didn't lower her gun. Not yet. She knew how these situations could turn in an instant. The stocky man glanced toward the sound, his face twisting with panic. He shifted like he might run. Don't, Danielle warned, adjusting her aim. Stay right where you are. Red and blue lights flashed against the pavement as a patrol car screeched to a stop. Two officers jumped out, guns drawn. Drop the weapon, one shouted. Danielle stood her ground, but she knew what could happen next. A black woman. A gun. A tense situation. Slowly, keeping her movements measured, she raised her free hand. I'm the victim. I have a permit. She kept her voice strong but clear. Now, it was a different kind of stand. Resolution. The officers moved in swiftly, securing the scene. One restrained the stocky man, pinning him to the ground, while another cautiously approached Danielle. Ma'am, put the gun down, the officer ordered, his voice firm but measured. Danielle nodded slowly, keeping her movements controlled. With deliberate care, she engaged the safety and placed the gun on the ground, then raised her hands. I have a permit, she repeated. I was defending myself. The officer hesitated for a moment, then glanced at the suspect in cuffs. One of the officers checked Danielle's ID, while another retrieved security footage from a nearby store. Minutes passed, tension lingering. Then, finally, the lead officer looked up at Danielle and gave her a single knowing nod. You did the right thing. Relief washed over her, but she knew this night would stay with her forever. As the officers led the stocky man to the patrol car, Danielle took a deep breath. The adrenaline was fading, but the weight of the moment remained. She looked down at her hands, steady, controlled, just like she'd trained for. A bystander approached. You good? They asked, a mix of awe and respect in their voice. Danielle nodded. She was more than good, she was prepared. This night could have ended differently, if she had been weaker, if she had hesitated, if she hadn't been ready. But she was ready. As she picked up her purse and walked toward her car, she knew one thing for sure. They thought they could get away with it.